Hi, I'm Ian Williams and I wrote Goblin Harvest, The Mighty Quest, and today I spoke to an American about beer. And being British, obviously, I won. This is the Rated R podcast.
And welcome back, everybody. Yeah, it's another episode of the Bamsters Rated R show. This time, episode 69. Don't know how we got there. As usual, my name is Resin, but you can call me G. And across the pond, I have Drac.
69, dude. Hey, guys.
And somewhere we have Bam, but we're not quite sure where he is.
Bam sounds like Eeyore today, so I think we dub him Eeyore when we refer to him in this episode.
Bam is literally still typing at us.
Is he expecting one of us to play his mouthpiece?
Yeah, I don't know. Come on, Bam, it doesn't hurt that much. Oh well, guess I'll carry on.
Oh, hey guys, welcome back to the show. We've got a cracking episode for you.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
It was supposed to be a horrid impression. I wasn't even really trying hard. I think maybe I should just apologize to Even right now.
Okay, should we just carry on into the first topic?
Yeah, I think we'll just go. Yeah.
Oh, well, we got a bit of an episode for you this time. Later on, we have Ian from Subjunctive here to talk about his little game, Goblin Harvest, and all the work he's done on it, including how it used to be a board game and how it used to be an Atari game, and basically we end up nerding out about old stuff.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool interview, and it's an interesting looking little game. It's kind of a turn-based strategy type game, but it's also got cards built into it and how you play the game. So stick around for that one after this section, and you'll get to hear more about it.
Meanwhile, in this little block, we have, well, Drac will be talking about stuff that he's been watching, and I'll be commenting a little bit about Overwatch. But first off, let's take some of the big news that's happened this last couple of days, since Friday, really. WanaCrypt and WanaDecryptor, and basically a ransomware that's been hitting the world, going around based on some NSA exploits from Windows. So yeah, things have been looking less than positive in so far 99 countries around the world.
I saw a headline for a news article that was talking about this, and it got cut off at WanaCry.
No, that's literally one of the names for it. WanaCrypt, WanaCry, there's a few different names depending on precisely what part of it they're talking about.
Oh yeah, but the news article was WanaCry and then the 3 dots indicating that there was more to it, but it had run out of space.
Yeah, so I guess it's really made the rounds this time. Hospitals in the UK, train stations in Germany, and basically infrastructure everywhere that's been running on old Windows installations have been hit by this little worm, this little ransomware, where it's taken control of computers, encrypted all the files, and then said, well, if you pay us 2 bitcoins, what is that today? About $1,000? It's quite a bit of money. Then you can get a key and it'll decrypt the computer and you can use it again. Get access to your data once again.
I know this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but bitcoins are worth that much? I never really kept up with it. And I mean, do they have change for bitcoins? So if you want to spend bitcoins on something, but you don't want to spend a full coin, how does that work?
Oh yeah, you can spend down to, what is it, a 10 millionth of a bitcoin or something like that. Like I have 0.00 and then I think 4 or 5 more digits worth of Bitcoin in one of my Bitcoin wallets.
Man, that's insane. They're worth that much.
Yeah, but it goes up and down. At one point it was about 1,000, then it was about 100. It varies a lot. I just remember the smallest amount of Bitcoin is called a Satoshi.
Okay. So, did anybody actually pay the ransom, and how much did they pull from that?
Well, that's the scary part. They've hit things all over the world, but they've so far made $26,000 approximately. At least at the time of recording, it's Sunday right now. And here's the curious part. When you pay, you can write down, or you can find the transaction ID, and that's basically an ID of this Bitcoin, because Bitcoins are just hashes. They're just mathematical results. That one can be traced everywhere. So if anybody uses that money, then it can be traced. So if the person who used it now goes to a more reputable store that takes Bitcoin and uses it there, then the authorities can trace it there, go to the store and say, who did you sell to? Do you have any video, any records, any track of this person? So Bitcoin is not anonymous. It's quite the opposite. There are laundry services, so they can take all this and put into laundry service that will then, think of it as you take 1,000 people's worth Bitcoins put into a machine and then randomly distribute and bang out in the same amounts. Now you don't know who got whose Bitcoin, but you can still go back and say, well, you helped launder money that was used in this. You are now guilty. Various laws in various countries apply here.
Yeah, I wondered how that was going to end up working because it seemed silly that to use any form of monetary transaction for something like this, because I figured it would have to be ultimately traceable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's traceable at least the moment it hits something more physical. The moment, let's say eBay took Bitcoin, the moment it hits eBay, you would go to them and say, who delivered this? So it's anonymous as long as everybody who are involved in the transaction is anonymous, but the moment somebody isn't, there's a trace back to the person.
So I know from what I heard in the news anyway, that hospitals seem to be the most ones hit by this. And at least from what they were saying is it's because people don't keep up with security updates and things like that on their machines. So I'm assuming this must still be older Windows systems, because I know with Windows 10, you don't really get much of a choice. At a certain point, it just says, okay, we're rebooting your machine because you've gotten updates.
Well, remember, that's for Windows Home and Windows Pro. Windows Enterprise in the Windows 10 series, you can turn most of this stuff off. You can control it a lot more. But yeah, Windows Vistas, XP, Windows 7, I think, were hit as well. And yeah, it's computers that aren't updated, but it's also computers that can't be updated because they're running software that is just that old. Or because updating them, you have to be absolutely sure nothing goes wrong. Like there was a car factory, some of my old customers got hit. And these are machines that they don't touch if they can avoid it because they run critical infrastructure software. That might be for tracking, parts on a conveyor belt, or in the UK for tracking, patients. If they can avoid updating, they will. But then they run into situations like this.
Well, I know they were saying, at least from the hospitals and stuff that got hit, one of the reasons a lot of times those are behind is because of all the laws that are in place to protect privacy and who has access to the systems, that a lot of times they fall behind with doing these updates because of all the red tape that they have to go through in order to do the updates.
Yep. But it's a bit scary. I mean, heart surgeries have been postponed. So far, nobody's reported dead, but theoretically, a aggressive enough attack could put hospitals at the point where they can't risk going through a surgery and somebody ends up having, an incident that might leave people dead.
I wonder if the folks who put this out even had an idea that could be some of the fallout from this.
Good question, but they made $26,000. They're being chased globally now, as that 99 countries want to have these people in handcuffs. And they're not being, they won't be put off for just small charges. This is big things when you literally put people's lives to risk.
Yeah, I bet they never touch that money.
They'd be stupid too, but no. We'll see what happens. Either way, people have actually been talking to the perpetrators. They've been, there's a contact us that shows up on the screen. Click here, you can talk to us, and people have been talking to them via, again, anonymous methods, trying to get this resolved and trying to appeal to them, but nope, they just want their money.
Seems to me like even a system like that, somehow someone might be able to use that to track them down.
Nah, there's some pretty advanced stuff available if you really want to stay hidden. One thing that came up, somebody, a malware person, a researcher, one of the good guys, was looking at a version of this software and said, why is there a URL, why is there a web page, web server being referenced that hasn't been bought? The web address hasn't been bought. So he went out and bought it, and it turns out this ransomware, this malware, would look for the existence of this address and then switch itself off if the address existed, like a dead switch. Only people have been blocking that address then in firewalls, etc., for security reasons, so if they are infected, their system won't switch off. The dead switch won't activate because they firewalled it.
Huh.
Either way, it's a question of just stay safe, don't click links in emails, don't be an idiot, and don't get hit by this.
Well, on that note, I think I'll switch things up a little bit. I was just going to bring up a couple of things that I've been watching or doing over the last couple of weeks. I started getting into some of these do-it-yourself YouTube videos, and one in particular that caught my eye because of some projects that I have coming up is DIY Projects with Pete. If you just look for that on YouTube, you can see a lot of the stuff he's done, but he had some really cool ones. First one I saw that really caught my attention was he took a piece of metal that he had cut with a plasma cutter and then set that into a form that he had made, poured concrete into it, and then when he pulls it out, that's actually inlaid into the surface of the top of the table. And he's done some other stuff with like some plexiglass and LED lights that are pretty cool. So I kind of got the idea that I'm working on designing a new office space to build I kind of I got this idea from watching that I want to take the desk that I'm going to build and actually do it as a concrete countertop type desk with the acrylic or the plexiglass in there, some LED lights underneath, and I'm still working on how I'm going to cut that at the plexiglass, but I'm thinking I might do something like a Space Invader or a Pac-Man theme.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It certainly is. I got a late start yesterday, so because I'm doing some practice tables, because we have a few tables we use in the backyard that are always outside. And they were just some tables that a hotel was throwing out that we picked up and brought home. At the time they were nice, but now the laminate top is peeling off and some of the wood is getting old and damaged. We've had them out there probably for about 5 years. But so I decided I need to learn a little bit how this process works and get some practice with it before I actually try to do this desk that I want to do in the office. So I was going to replace these 3 tabletops with a concrete countertop. I didn't get as early a start as I would have liked yesterday. And I think I ended up working till about maybe 8 or 8:30 when I had pretty much lost daylight. But I got all 3 of the forms built. I got the wiring cut up for the. It's not really rebar. It's I think it's a lot thinner than rebar, but for the support to go with inside the concrete there. And probably later today, I think I'll actually pour the concrete and get that ready. But I'll put some pictures up at some point somewhere, social media, when I actually get this thing going.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures over on that DIY projects with Pete. That table looks kind of a little bit funky, but also really nerdy.
Yeah, the ones he does with the LED lights and stuff, he uses as like an outdoor bar, and I can see where that's really cool. I think they've done some other projects where they actually put in like a fireplace in the center. So they have a cutout in the concrete where they would, run the gas pipe too and put like some colored glass and stuff in there. He's got some really cool stuff. I know Bam was saying I needed to go look for some real do-it-yourself stuff, but I stumbled onto this guy because I was interested in, because of a project I was interested in doing. I started looking at different things, design ideas for what I might do for this office space.
Oh no, it looks cool. There's some of his other project I think looks better, but this could work okay. I'm primitive. The biggest thing that I would do is I have an old table that I want to recover by some liquid rubber, and then you spread that over gently and get this rubberized surface on the table. That's really nice for desktops.
Oh, that could be nice. Yeah, watching this guy's videos and some of the stuff that showed up in YouTube on the side panel, I started watching all these other things where you got guys like over in Russia that are taking either concrete or wood and cutting a channel out of it, and then running an LED light around the edge of the channel, and then putting a bunch of crushed glass inside of there, and they're making. It's insane when you see all the stuff that people are doing nowadays. Especially with LED lights and the opportunities that are offered because they're so small and vibrant. Though that's pretty neat.
Yeah, just my experience is get wife approval first. I made a nice little setup just for watching TV in the living room that you can dim the light. Then behind the sofa there was an LED strip. So imagine wall, then a kind of like a table behind the sofa leading up to the wall, about 30 centimeters, 1 foot deep. So you get the sofa away from the wall, away from the speakers behind you. And then where the two met, this little table bit and the sofa, put an LED strip so there's light behind you. That's for relaxing the eyes, etc. But also, you could do different moods with different colors. Wife went, okay, and then switched it off and made sure I couldn't switch it back on again.
Oh. She wasn't into the mood lighting, huh?
Yeah, no.
Well, and then the other thing, more, I should say entertainment rather than any kind of other value really, is Sense8 recently was released on Netflix, and I just started watching the 2nd season of that. Do you know, have you watched that, or has anybody else on the show been watching that?
Don't actually know if Eben's been into it, but I don't think the rest have yet.
I'm only into to episode 4 of the 2nd season so far, but thus far it's as good as the 1st season was. Some people, I'm sure, will like it. Others probably not, for different reasons. But it's kind of an interesting concept. It's these clusters of people that have a mental connection with each other, and so they, even though they're spread across the entire world in different places in the world, they can communicate with each other, even see each other as if they're standing in the same room, and see what the other person is seeing, experience what the other person is experiencing. So it leads to some interesting storytelling opportunities.
That could fuck things up if you're having, a private moment.
There's been a couple of times when that's happened.
Well, I guess I'll add it to my to-watch list. I must admit, I haven't been watching a lot of TV recently, except for just whatever, like Big Bang Theory. So, not much new there. They're at season 10 by now. Something I have been kind of looking at and scratched my head a bit. Did you know you can rent Overwatch players?
I had heard something about this, yeah, but I don't know all the details. Go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know all the details either. I've been reading, 2 articles where people have been talking about it, and somebody went ahead and rented like 3 different Overwatch players. And, the first thing that all of them kind of points out is you can rent female Overwatch players. As somebody said somewhere, oh, look, you can rent a girlfriend to play with you. Nope, not last bit at least.
On the one hand, I do kind of applaud the ingenuity of this. I mean, there are worse ways to make money.
Oh yeah, because one of these articles, the guy who rented 3 different people to try this out to see what it was, he talked to them, and particularly one pointed out she was not professional player, but she was, I guess they called it pro level in Overwatch, and she needed to play anyway. She was playing Overwatch every day. Might as well play with people who would pay her to play Overwatch. And a lot of the headaches, I guess, every time I see Overwatch mentioned anywhere, people go, oh no, stay on the objective, play the objective, stay on the thing that moves around. Sorry, I don't play Overwatch. I tried it a few times, but not my game. But now you can pay somebody to play with you and then tell them or dictate their playstyle and which hero to play, etc. That might make it easier.
Man, now I might have to get this game, practice at it, get good, and then see if I can get somebody to pay me to play with them. Of course, I'm lacking in a few areas, but...
Yeah, it's a little bit curious that if you go to Fiverr and look this up, they're all females. The only ones who are getting rented, at least, are girls, women who are playing Overwatch. There seems to be a topic there, but if they're okay with it at some level, I guess I am too.
Well, like I said, there's worse ways to make money.
Yeah, I just need to go over there and see if I can find any Paragon players who are not, utter shite.
Oh, then you wouldn't want me playing Paragon with you.
You can't be worse than the people I just played with earlier today.
I wouldn't bet on that. I think I've probably played Paragon maybe 4 or 5 times at this point. I just haven't made the time yet to get into that with everything else that's been going on.
Well, I just want somebody who's capable of playing Grugs. How hard can it be?
I would not be the one to answer that question. I don't even know if I've played that character yet.
Yeah, this is where I'm not mentioning that that's the character Bam always plays, like, every time.
Ooh. Is Eeyore going to pop in and say something?
Doesn't sound like it. Anyways, that was just a few topics we kind of wanted to cover before we get into the whole interview part. So, coming up next, Ian from Subjunctive talking about... What was the game again? Drac, you played it.
Goblin Harvest, The Mighty Quest.
See you soon.
Do you like goblins? Do you like fighting goblins? Then you're going to love Goblin Harvest, The Mighty Quest. My name's Ian Williams, and this is the Bamsters podcast, Rated R.
And welcome back, everybody. Yeah, it's one of those interview times. So, as usual, my name is G, and across the pond, I have my colleague Draconusx.
That is a mighty large pond. Hey, everybody. And this week with us, we have Ian, also known on Discord as Subjunctive, here to talk about his game called Goblin Harvest. Ian, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
So, Ian, first question, Goblin Harvest. Now, I'll admit to everybody, I haven't actually played the game. That's Draconus's job because he's one of those PC people. But the title alone sounds like you're running around harvesting goblins. That's not nice. What are you doing to them?
It's farming goblins, obviously, to make goblin bread. No, it's not. I lied. The idea here is that you're living in a small kingdom, and it's high fantasy stuff. And goblins are about to invade. So they start to invade. And there's a point in the game when every now and again the goblins will kind of frenzy if they're in farmland areas, and it's called a Goblin Harvest, and they kind of make an extra move and burn the crops and destroy stuff. So that's kind of the genesis of the name, really, Goblin Harvest.
Okay, less evil towards goblins, more evil towards plants.
Yeah.
and the townspeople in the surrounding area.
Yeah, they don't like it. They don't like it. So the idea is to try to help them to fight the goblins off. Yeah.
So did you put this game together yourself, or are you working with a group of other people?
No, this is just me. So I sort of devised and coded the whole thing myself. But I did use an artist in the end. The first version I kind of put onto Steam Greenlight. Got some interest and some good comments, but the underlying message was these graphics are no good, because I'd use kind of open source type graphics that kind of thing. So so I engaged an artist then, which meant another year development and work. So just me and an artist, really. Her name is Jeanette Ramos, and she lives in the Philippines.
Oh, that's cool. I always like to hear about people who've created these teams that are online-based teams, because that's what we are. The Bamsters podcast crew is an online team.
Yeah, it worked great. It worked really well. I mean, I found Jeanette on DeviantArt. I found a few that I was interested in, wrote to them, and I liked Jeanette's stuff the best, so we came to an agreement, and she did the stuff. She also insisted that it looked better than I kind of expected it to, and forced me into some redesign work, which was well worth it. But obviously at the time I was thinking, more coding, no. But anyway, so the end result thing is a testament to the fact that she was right about it. So I think it looks quite good now.
So what is your background then? You talked about how you programmed all of this. What did you use to build the game? What did you program in?
So this is written in something called MonkeyX. I don't know whether you've come across that. It's a multi-platform, hence the X programming language. A kind of a sort of a descendant of something called Blitz Basic that used to be around a few years ago, written by a guy called Mark Sibley. So it's very good, but it's mainly good at just putting graphics on the screen at a really fast rate. Doesn't give you an awful lot more. So it's been quite a long process to write the game, because I had to write a whole framework, everything around, even centering text or zooming in and out and all the rest of the stuff all had to be written by hand. So it's been quite a long process. But I think, it's fast and it's good. So it's worked well.
It's more targeting 2D graphics, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's 2D. Yeah.
It's nice enough seeing somebody using something else than Unity for things like 2D graphics.
Well, quite, yeah.
I don't have an issue with Unity, but it's a little bit heavy for 2D graphics, I find.
I think so, and I looked at Unity, and because its history isn't based on around a 2D idea, it feels like a bit of a kludge to do 2D stuff in it, to me anyway. So I was happier using something like MonkeyX. Whether I'll stick with MonkeyX in the future, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it has its challenges, and the fact of I've had to write this quite complex framework to make the game work makes me think in the future I may consider maybe Game Maker Pro or App Game Kit, which is the other nice new thing that's come out.
Yeah, well, I would think if you already put a lot of effort into a framework, it'd be a question of how much you can reuse in future games.
It's a good point. So yeah, I'm thinking about this. I know a lot about MonkeyX now, so yeah, it might be worth sticking with it, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
But yeah, I'm a fan of the notion that the right tool isn't just the one that fits all the technical checkboxes, it's also the one because if you're going to spend another year learning a new language.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, people get quite blasé about this. They say, it's just another language, just another syntax. But of course, it's not. It's all the nuances and idiosyncrasies that you need to learn that take the time, really. Yeah.
As somebody who's been programming for coming up on 30 years, I think I could show languages that would scare most people.
Yeah.
So, but let's get back to the game, because we've looked at it. Well, I'm looking at it right on my screen right now.
Cool.
And yeah, there are goblins everywhere, but explain the mechanics a little bit. So what is it? Yeah, we have to protect all the farmland from the goblins, but what's the mechanics? It's not really a hack and slash game.
No. So, excuse me, there are kind of two elements to the game. There's a strategy game going on, which is when you play the game, you'll see there's a map, and there are goblins, and every turn they'll come down the map. And what they want to do is to get to the bottom of the screen to the citadel, at which point you lose the game. They also want to take all the towns on the map as they go along. And each turn, you've got armies, which you can select and move, but you can only move them according to the cards you have in your hand. So, for example, to move an army onto a mountain square, you need a mountains card. And there are 5 different terrain types: mountains, marshes, forest, hills, and farmland. It's a matter of using your cards wisely, perhaps discarding some, because your hands are refilled every turn, to try to hold these goblins back, because all you need to do is move the armies onto goblin units to destroy them. Unfortunately, the goblins can do the same to your armies, and they can do the same with towns and anything else they come across. It's like a wave of nastiness coming down the map. You need to hold them back, but you can't win this game militarily. You can't win it in the strategy game. To win the game, you have to win the RPG adventure game, in which you're the king's champion, going through the same landscape, solving a quest, so that you can go and fight the Goblin King and finally put an end to all this unpleasantness. Does that help? I mean, it's quite a complex story, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what attracted you to making a game like this as opposed to, a lot of the stuff that we do see with, turn-based or a certain number of moves or rolling dice? What was the attraction to using cards?
So the board game itself, the Goblin Harvest board game, I actually made years ago in physical form as a board game, as a solitaire board game. And I was always quite sort of happy with the design. It seemed to work quite interestingly. And I did actually make a version for the Atari ST, would you believe, a long time ago. But I couldn't flog that, but always kind of had a hankering to use it again. So I wanted to use that. And that game had a very simple quest, but I wanted to do a more interesting quest and decided to use a sort of text-based RPG approach to achieve that. So it's kind of a hybrid game, which I think for some people that's quite complex to get their heads around at the beginning, which is why I've had to make quite a long quick start video to explain the thing.
I probably should have watched the video before I started playing.
Did you not watch the video? Oh.
I like to just jump in and see what I can do with it. And then if I run into problems, I'll look and see if there's like a tutorial or videos and stuff like that can help me walk through it. But I kind of just like to jump in feet first and see what I can do with it.
And how did that go for you?
I lasted about, I think, maybe 40, 45 minutes if I was lucky.
Oh, that's quite good. For a first go, that's actually quite good.
Yeah, when I started out too, I was focused more on moving the armies around than I was on the quest. And trying to hold back all those goblins was not going to happen.
Yeah. So one thing that happens, the two parts of the game do interact. So, for example, in the quest, if you go out into the world and go into, say, a mountains region and you explore it, you get a mountains card, which you can then use for your armies to move your armies into a mountain area. So, the two parts of the game do interact quite a lot, and you'll find that it's much easier if you do both things, in fact. So if you play it again, that's what you need to be thinking about, I think.
Yeah, I think I kept cursing the card deck because I would want to move armies and I couldn't move them. I wasn't getting the right cards to move across the terrain.
Yep. That's what happens. But like I said, you can get yourself extra cards. There are other things. There are maps that the King's Champion can get a hold of, and other ways of getting cards that help you. So it is quite a complicated thing to play. I mean, even I find it quite occasionally it's quite overwhelming because there's quite a lot going on. You've got to think about these two parts of the game. But I hope it's interesting and exciting at the same time.
Well, I know this is going to be a little bit out in left field. I understand the game is a single player game, but a lot of times I'll ask about whether or not folks have considered putting in multiplayer or co-op. With something like this, I can see where that might not work specifically where the two players are working together. But in a future iteration, have you ever even thought of, or does it even sound like a fun idea to have one player controlling the goblins, where it's like a versus type game, almost like the old school Battleship?
Yes, I have. Yeah. So, and that's something I've never tried, but I think it would be an interesting mechanic to use. Yeah, so you've got cards and you're fighting each other. That would be interesting. The other thing to say is that you can play this game cooperatively now. It's just using the same screens, either on the PC or the iPad, because one of you can be the old king moving the armies, and the other person can be the King's Champion exploring and doing the quest. So you could actually do it, cooperatively.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, yeah, I hadn't considered that.
I did actually mark it up as a cooperative game on Steam originally, but Steam wrote back and said, I don't think this is cooperative. And I really couldn't be bothered to argue with them, so I kind of backed off because there's nothing intrinsic actually in the code or in the game itself that says this is a co-op game. But of course, it just depends how you might want to play it, and you could obviously do that if you wanted. And I think that would work really well, actually. I've not tried it even, so if somebody out there would like to give it a go and let me know, that'd be great.
I actually think there are other games that are doing that. I've seen some, is that Total War they were playing, where literally one person played the strategy side and the other one would do the actual battles. That was an interesting way of playing.
Really, yeah.
Each playing to their own strengths.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Throughout the entire process, were you self-funded, or did you go to something like Kickstarter or somewhere else to find funding? No,
I just did this in my spare time, really. So, which is why it took so long. Because when I work full-time as well, I don't just do this, so... so it took a while to do as a result of that, really. Evenings and weekends is how this game's been put together.
Still, that's pretty impressive. I'm always impressed whenever we talk to somebody and it's just a small group, like 1, 2, 3 people maybe, and, doing it themselves. Sometimes they go to some place like Kickstarter to get some funding, but, they spent years working on something and to me, that just shows their passion for that, because why would you continuously spend most of your free time doing this over a period of years if it wasn't something you enjoyed?
Yeah, quite. And you should ask my wife about this too. She's not always impressed by the idea, but she's kind of used to it. I've been doing this for years now. I was trying to do something interesting and creative, and these things take time, don't they? Absolutely, they do. So yeah, but I think for me, it's a creative process that I really enjoyed. It's about creating worlds, and that's every game. I think every computer game and board game, in fact, is a kind of a world in its own right. And so what you're doing is creating one of those. So I find that quite addictive.
That was one of the things I used to love about Dungeons and Dragons. It was so much fun to create, these imaginary spaces, and seeing what people do with Minecraft nowadays as well.
Yeah, right, isn't it?
Well, I do see. I'm just looking at Steam at the moment, and for some reason, you have 100% positive reviews.
Yeah, that's because there aren't very many yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like Steam is normally a lot less friendly than that.
I could do some more reviews, I think, is the answer. But more good reviews, I would say. But
But I like the reason why I'm bringing up is because I'm reading one of them just in parallel. Apologies to our listeners that I do this while we're doing the interview.
That's fine.
Yeah. And somebody refers to old text-based mods as a It's kind of like, okay. So we're getting a lot of text that we have to respond to. I'm assuming we don't have to walk around and type fight and type punch. Head north.
Get sword. Yes. No. So it's a kind of it's a postmodern text adventure, if you like. So anything you can do is a highlighted word. So you might see a sword, but you just click on the sword, and then you're asked if you want to pick it up or what you want to do with it. So there's no typing, no, and none of this guessing what you might mean by open door, which was the problem that dogged the original adventure games, I think.
Oh yeah, the parsers were always funny back then.
Yeah. Well, I used to use a thing called the quill, which is great, but it was always difficult to write it so that people wouldn't get frustrated, because people always wanted to do something weird, throw cushion or whatever. And if the game doesn't know what that means, then you're a bit. It was at a loss and would say, I don't know what you mean by that. And of course, it just frustrated people. But
I seem to recall a few that went the other way and said, when you gave a command that it perfectly well understood, it would either go, I'm not sure that's wise, or it would just do something completely different, but that was technically correct. It would interpret it purposefully in a wrong way, but technically correct.
Yeah, just interesting. Yeah.
That reminds me of the old King's Quest games. And we about fell out of our chair laughing one time because you were in a wizard's tower and somebody just suggested, hey, type kick the cat. And we did. And you launched the cat right out the window.
You see, when they've put that kind of thing in, that's good, right? They've thought of that. That's nice. But yeah, so it has that kind of mud feel, I suppose. But I hope without the frustrations, you know what you can and can't do because the words there highlighted for you. You can switch this off in the game if you want to make it a bit harder for yourself. So you can choose to have the action words, if you like, not highlighted and not in a different colour. But they do change colour when you hover over them, certainly on the PC. For those people who like to be more masochistic about it, perhaps.
Fair enough. So, but you're already up to version 1.4 something, I noticed. That's...
Yeah. 4.3, I think, on Steam, isn't it? The next version on Steam will be 1.5, and I've jumped to 1.5 because it's quite a big change, quite a big enhancement to the game is coming soon, I hope.
Ooh, people, you heard it here first. Update coming.
Oh yeah, breaking news, guys.
What are some of the larger hurdles you've had to resolve since releasing the game?
I sort of one or two little glitches. Some people are still struggling with mouse pointers not aligning properly with what's happening on screen. It seems to be limited to just a few people. Only a few people have commented on it. And obviously not everyone, obviously you didn't have the same problem, but some people are. I don't know whether this is some kind of video card specific problem or what. So, but I can't recreate it at the moment, so I'm looking into that. And at some point, I will be putting up some test versions for those people so they can, with some on-screen diagnostics, so we can try and work out what's going on. So that's been a bit of a challenge, to be honest with you. But generally speaking, I think it seems it's working for most people quite nicely. So it's been okay. The biggest challenge in terms of gameplay has been some people haven't liked the way that the combat works in the game. because it's based on rock, paper, scissors. So they were concerned it was too random. Obviously, it wasn't completely random, and there was some code in there to stop it being too obvious. But I have spent the last few weeks doing a lot of work on the combat, which is why version 1.5 will be quite a different beast, really.
Well, I was going to crack a joke about, maybe it was folks trying to use a Mac and play the game, just to kind of rib G a little bit. But I was looking on the Steam page, and it lists, Windows as the OS. So have you targeted, or will it possibly be available on any other platforms besides Windows? And I heard you mention earlier the Apple iOS.
It's on iPad, yeah. So I have looked at. I'm considering Mac, of course, because it's a much smaller market, to be honest with you. But it will need a little bit of work. So certainly on a Retina screen, it doesn't work particularly well at the moment. So I would need to do a bit of work to make that happen, I think. So for the time being, it's definitely going to be PC and an iPad. I'm not sure about Android at the moment. I don't personally have an Android device, and I know that Android devices are, because they vary so much, in rather like PCs, in fact, in terms of form factor and resolutions and the other things and performance. So that I haven't really sort of ventured there yet, but maybe one day, maybe.
Well, I'm guessing most people who have a Mac also have an iPad, except me. That's not the story.
Yeah. Of course they do.
And this is where even our audio editor will come in and complain. We're making generalizations about him and his Mac friends.
And his Mac, yes. Well, I have a Mac myself, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to deploy it to the iPad. And I like Macs and I like PCs, but they're different beasts. And contrary to some people's opinions, Macs are not magic. It turns out they have similar problems.
Yeah, no, they have their own issues. They have their own problems.
They do.
As long as I don't have to use Windows, I'm happy.
Oh, Windows is fine. Windows 10's good.
I wouldn't know. I haven't really tried it.
You should. Give it a go. You might like it.
Because that requires buying a new computer and stuff.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I've been trying to get these guys to upgrade their PC, or either purchase or upgrade their PCs so we can play some PC games together.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Windows 10. It works fine.
But this is why I'm enjoying really indie games, because, I can't play all the latest games on my Mac for various reasons, mostly because the market is so small, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But indie developers are taking the chances and just putting the games out there. There's some great gems out there, such as your own. Admittedly, you didn't go the Mac route. That might come in the future, but a lot of them
it
do.
might happen, certainly. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, the indie scene is an amazing thing, by the way. I mean, I think it's worth saying that when I started writing computer games, you could be a bedroom coder and get stuff out, and it was great, And then there was a period really for maybe the 90s and some of this latest millennium, when it was much harder to get any kind of any kind of game out there unless you had a publisher. And of course that made it so difficult for most people. And of course the tools weren't available for creating this stuff as well. So the indie scene is an amazing thing. I mean, we are blessed by it, really. Of course, it's saturated and it's too big, and indie marketing has become like an art form in its own right. But at the same time, that's because that's a sign of its own success. Really, I think it's amazing what's available now, and the indie kind of attitude really has made a huge difference to the whole market.
I think the comparison to the 80s is quite valid, because back then, putting out a piece of software, the publishing part was difficult because there was really not much, self-publishing was the thing, unless you got one of the 3, 4, 5 big ones to do it for you. But the level to get into it, every computer came with BASIC. Every computer came with... Yeah,
well, that's how I wrote my first game, in BASIC, yeah.
And once you had it written, you can put it out in various forms. You would contact those... companies that would distribute them in various forms without actually publishing, like we know publishers today. Yeah. So the level of entry was low, but it became higher in the 90s. And it became even
too hard. Yeah.
When we hit 2000, it was bad. But now with all these tools, it's lowered again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, what comes with that is a saturated market. But that's okay. That's better than no market, isn't it? And better than no opportunities for people. And that's really why I've ended up doing something bigger again, really, since kind of the 80s, really. In the 80s, it meant to get anywhere. What I did was I sent copies to the computer game mags, and there it was. My address would be, on the review, so people could write to me for copies of the game. So
that was ages ago.
Yeah, it was very cottage industry stuff,
Oh yeah, and we didn't have them where I grew up, but I've since then encountered them. These meets where people would get together and say, oh, I made this, I made that, and then they swap their games or their demos, whatever they made software-wise.
Yeah, well, no, I'm far too insular for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess being Scandinavian, it was more the demo scene and all the...
Yes, you're right, yes. So, well, the demo scene was quite big once the 16-bit things came along, certainly, on the ST and the Amiga. The demo scene was huge then, yeah, absolutely. As was hacking and cracking.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at old, what was it, Atari format magazines? And
my games were Spectrum games originally. That's what I put out. Can you believe that? Spectrum games.
That was with the old rubber keyboard and everything.
48K of memory. Amazing.
Sinclair would be happy.
I almost met him, because my games are on the... they come bundled with the Spectrum Vega, which is sort of a console version of the Spectrum. I don't know if you've come across it. And I went to the launch because my games were going to be on the, were going to be bundled with it. And I only really went because I thought, well, maybe I'd meet Clive Sinclair. But he was ill that day, so I didn't turn up. Great disappointment. Yeah, shame. Never mind.
Well, you tried. That's the important part, right?
I did. I did.
Oh, damn, now I'm going to have to dig out an old emulator and play old 8-bit games.
Yeah, I can send you some ROMs of my games. Oh, great. Boxing Manager, right? What you want?
Oh, I don't even think I have a ZX Spectrum emulator or anything. I do have a C64.
There's one called ZX Spectrum 4, which I got the other day, which seems to work quite nicely.
Nice. Yeah, no, at some point, Drac can probably remember, when we first met, we were looking at an old D&D game. Well, a new one that was coming out at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And Sorco's Legends. And waiting for it, I started playing my old Amiga games.
Yeah.
Just, the old D&D, AD&D games. Kind of like, wow, it's been 20 years, but hey, it's still fun.
Yeah. Well, gameplay, as long as the gameplay's there, you're okay, aren't you, with any old game?
That's my opinion too, but I think people like Draconusx, who needs all the graphics, would still need to
Does he?
educate.
Oh, Draconusx, are you shallow?
I love the graphics, but I don't need them. I've been enjoying the indie market as well. But I mean, a buddy of mine and I, we both we get together every couple of weeks and play PC games up in his garage, and he spent way more time than I did, because most of what I did was dialogue writing and stuff. But we recreated the Eye of the Beholder 1 and 2 games using the Neverwinter Nights engine.
Huh?
And he reached out and did the same kind of thing like you had, where he reached out to people online to help with different things like scripting and whatnot. But the amount of hours we spent testing those two different mods was pretty steep. But it harkens back to that love of those games, though, those old school games.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, it was ever so that it was the gameplay that was important, and even back in the day, right back in 8-bit days, there were some games that looked great but really didn't work as games, So it's a constant a sort of balancing act to get those two things right, I think. I mean, it's amazing now that you can get amazing games that look brilliant, like the new Zelda game, for example. But also play brilliantly, So it's great. We've got the best of both worlds now. So,
well, and on that note, that kind of brings up something that I was thinking about asking when we were talking about platforms and stuff. Is I know that Nintendo has opened up an indie market. Have you looked into that? Is that something you're considering?
No, but I know, yes. You mean on the Switch? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's certainly something I might. Yes, because I recently bought the Switch. I originally pre-ordered it and then bottled out and backed off, cancelled my pre-order. Thought, I don't need that. It's fine. I can play the new Zelda on my old Wii U. But then I really wanted a Switch, so I did buy one a few weeks ago, and it's great. So I might look into that. That would be rather cool, wouldn't it?
Now I'm wishing Bam was here, because he's anti-Switch.
Really? Oh, we can have a chat about that. The Switch is cool. Come on. Yeah, they're really nice. And it's effortless. You know what Nintendo want you to do, which is kind of use it on the TV and use it in your hand and carry it around. And you think, oh, yeah. But you do. It's great. It really works,
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it, and I'm looking forward to, I think it's Friday when Mario Kart finally comes out for it.
Yes, I know. Am I going to buy that again? I don't know. Oh, I guess I am.
I saw a review online that said it was actually better than the Wii U version. I guess they've added a few things in there.
Yeah, really? Okay. Sold. Fine. Fine.
Well, I had a Wii, but I never upgraded to the Wii U. So for me, it'll be the first time buying it. But I never got the Wii U because they didn't have a Zelda game for it.
No, they didn't, did they? Well, I mean, the Wii U was quite nice. It had a few games that I quite enjoyed, but it didn't quite have that innovation that perhaps the original Wii had. That feeling of something new, which it had. Yeah. But no, Switch, I love it. Yeah. I may look into that. That would be great. Goblin Harvest on Switch. Yeah, watch this space. See what I can do.
Well, I'm more curious because you mentioned that this basically spins off from, you mentioned Atari games, but also as a board game.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Would we ever see like a Kickstarter for a Goblin Harvest 2 where you can get both the game and the board game?
Oh, well, okay. That's an interesting idea. I have thought about Goblin Harvest 2, and I'd quite like to do something with, well, it'd be nice to do the graphics in a more, at least isometric 3D or, semi 3D style. That would be really cool with a lot more randomization. And the point of the game really, is that every game is different. I mean, it is. I use the term procedurally generated. I mean random, but obviously there have to be some rules around the randomness so that it works as a game still. So I've thought about writing Goblin Harvest 2 to use more of those ideas really. The board game idea, if I could mix the two together, that would be splendid. I mean, I love board games. I mean, we are in a golden age of board games as
very much so.
People say, which is fantastic because I've always loved them. I read my first board game when I was 8. I made the first one when I was 8. So we didn't have computer games then. There was no such thing, but there were board games. So I've always loved them, and I'd love to make a board game, but of course that's an incredibly competitive market and quite difficult because of all the manufacturing that goes on.
Oh yeah, there are headaches with it. I saw one group on Kickstarter. They offered a sort of board game off their game, but you basically just got the rules and everything you could print out yourself and make cutouts. That was kind of cute. I liked that idea.
A kind of print and play thing, yeah.
The board games have become this thing. I should say, as somebody who's kind of living next door to Germany, I've noticed board games there have kept being a thing that never went away. But it's come out and it's spread around again. And if you go to Kickstarter, if you want to be successful, release a board game, not a computer game.
Yeah. But they're great, aren't they? I mean, I just love the feel of a board game, or the bits. You've got to like that, right? it's a paraphernalia and the stuff that you get with a board game, and the ideas. Every board game is just a box full of ideas, isn't it? How could you not like that? It's amazing.
Oh yeah, I just have the problem. My kids keep finding Estonian board games. They will explain the rules to me, but I have no idea if they're right.
Yeah, Dad. Honestly.
The joys of being a father in a multi-language home.
Is that how your life works? Brilliant. That's cool.
Oh, my every day is between 3 to 5 languages.
See, I'm British. We stick to English, of course, and that's about it. Yeah, it's terrible. Really.
I've noticed even when you go to Spain or go to South Africa, wherever, it's just you'll just speak English and then possibly speak it a little bit slower.
No, we just shout.
Oh yeah, that too.
It's awful, isn't it? I mean, I know some French and some German, and I'm horrified that we're going to leave the EU, for example. And I'm also horrified at the British lack of interest in foreign languages. There's a sort of hubris about that, isn't there? Which I don't enjoy.
Yeah, I think that's one of those topics we try to keep away from it because half the team is in the UK in various places, and some are from the UK, some are migrants. I think you call them, or immigrants. And it's a topic that blows up every so often in the BAMSAS group.
Really? Yeah. Well, okay. For what it's worth, I'm very much pro-Europe and would rather be part of Europe than anything else. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, but hey, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
It is going to happen. Yeah, it is.
Drac at this point has no clue what we're talking about because he assumes it's just another wall.
If this is too political, you can edit it out. Cool.
No, Drac was afraid to jump in because then, of course, you would go over to what's going on in the U.S. and talk about Trump and everything else. And I more or less try to avoid political stuff. I'm just so exhausted with it.
Me too. Yes, I know. Yes, I'm also slightly horrified by the way things have turned out, but we'll see.
So I'll circle back around to the game and Steam and stuff. But
do the game, yeah.
So when I was looking on Steam, this released on the 6th of March this year, right?
Yes.
Was that also the same release date for iOS?
About then, yes. I can't remember. Maybe a few days later I did the iOS, yeah. Well, yeah, probably a couple of weeks, actually, because getting through the Apple process takes a little longer sometimes. But that's good. That's out there. It's usable and playable, and I'll be trying to coordinate the release of the new version on both platforms as close as I can, but it's just me, so it takes time sometimes.
Well, if there's no multiplayer or network features, and perhaps not the most critical thing that they're synchronized.
Oh no, absolutely no. No, absolutely not. But it'd be nice to get them both done together. What I'm trying to do, there's a bit of a PR campaign going to happen as well around that time as well, because obviously that would be quite useful to let people know about the game at the same time as the new version goes out.
Well, are there any major differences in how the two games play, or I should say how the game plays on the two different OSs?
No, absolutely not. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. The iPad doesn't have nice fades between scenes, between screens, but that's it. That's the only difference, really.
Well, I guess you can't hover your finger over words either.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. You can't hover, no. So
sorry about that.
Well, absolutely. So hovering is quite useful on the PC. I agree, absolutely. But no, you can't do that on the iPad now.
See, we need to tell Apple they need to make it so you can hover your finger over things.
Yeah, it would be great. And it frustrates me because it's so useful as a games writer. That whole hover thing is fantastic. And without it, you know that the player's getting less information than perhaps they.
Oh yeah, the whole tooltip feature there in any program. When that first came up, was one of those. Just place your pointer there and wait half a second, and here's some information. It's kind of like, ooh, UIs are completely different now. Yeah,
it's great. That bit of contextual stuff is great, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Well, let's get to it. The ultimate question. Although I think there's a series of books that would disagree with that. So, Ian, now that we have you here, we've talked about your game. It looks nice and everything. But let's face it, there's one thing more than anything that we need to ask about. Bacon and beer. What is your favorite kind of bacon? How do you want that bacon? And what kind of beverage, beer, cider, do you want with it?
Well, to be honest, I've been interviewed a few times in my life, but I've never been asked about bacon. Which is odd, isn't it, really, when you think about it? So I'm very glad you asked me. So for me, very simple tastes in bacon. I like unsalted back bacon. That's about it, really. Nothing complicated. Occasionally, I've done mind a bit of air-dried bacon. The dried stuff is quite nice, but really just back bacon, really. I like it griddled and not grilled. My wife will insist on grilling bacon, but it just turns into some sort of cardboard thing, as far as I can see.
So you want some juices to be with it still?
Yeah, come on. So griddled back bacon is fine. Yeah, that's what I like.
Nice. See, this is why I'm a big puzzled, because you're not the first British person we've had on, a person from the UK, the British Isles.
Yeah.
Not a single one has mentioned Danish bacon, and I'm just disappointed.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
But it could be Danish, absolutely. It can be Danish, or that's. I really don't have any kind of views about nationality of the bacon, really, of the pig. It's just the type of bacon, really. You asked about drink, so beer. I like beer rather than wine or anything else. And although I live in a sort of cider area of the UK, but I prefer beer, really. And a beer I really like is called Buttybach.
Buttybach doesn't ring a bell.
Buttybach. Okay, so this is it's a Welsh word, Welsh phrase. I didn't even know what it meant, so I looked it up today because I knew you were going to ask me this question. And it means little friend, Buttybach. And it's a beautiful beer made on the border between England and Wales by the Wye Valley Brewery Company, I think. Recommended. And I expect them to send me a crate, obviously, after this. A bit of promotion.
Promotion, yeah.
But no, Buttybach's lovely, beautiful beer, and local to where I live. So that's my recommendation to have with your bacon. Buttybach bacon.
I'm a little jealous now because I kind of, within the last maybe year or two, I started to switch away from beer so much more towards cider. I'll still have the occasional beer, but yeah, I'd love to be in an area where they're making all kinds of ciders.
Oh, it's nice. It's nice. Well, in fact, my daughter's husband's, my son-in-law's friend is a bit of a cider expert and appears on TV often on sort of cookery programs promoting ciders. So there you go. That's how important cider is around here.
Nice.
Yeah. But in America, you can't get real beer, can you?
I guess that depends on your definition of real beer.
Ooh.
Yeah, G and I were just going back and forth, I think this morning on Twitter about that. There's a lot more available than just Budweiser or Coors or whatever. There's a lot of craft beers that have come up in the last maybe decade or so.
But are they all a bit lagery?
I would not be the best person to answer that question. Only because I honestly I've never considered myself a beer connoisseur. I just drink it, and if I like the taste, I like it, and if I don't have it again.
but in England we like sort of flat, warm beer, right?
I have heard that, yes.
Yeah, it's true. It is true.
I say when I'm in England, I actually also like it for some reason. When I'm not in England, I stay away from it.
Really? Oh, well, in Rome.
Yeah, I don't know. But I would say, yes, America has done the whole craft beer, and they went all the way out. Those of us that are familiar with concepts like Reinheitsgebot, if anybody else, that's the rules set down by the monk Gambrinus for how to make beer.
Oh, right.
Reinheits, the cleanliness rules.
Brauhaus. Okay, okay.
Yeah, and Americans are breaking it in every way possible when they make their craft beer. So they have, let's say, non-lagers, because Reinheitsgebot gives you pretty much a lager every time. Well, a Pilsner.
Yes.
But one of the best IPAs I've had was actually American. So they can make something, but it's not. When you tell an American, "Oh, should we get some beer?" Yeah, I'm sorry, Drac. Most of them are thinking Coors Light, Bud Light, lime thing that makes you throw up.
You see, I feel bad now. I feel like I've started a problem now.
Oh, that was going on 8 hours ago already.
Yeah, it depends on what part of the country you're in. Craft beer is a really big thing in Southern California.
Yeah, but I'll say you have to send me a link to that Buddy Bach thing so I can look it up.
Bach, yes. Oh, great. Buddy Bach. It's a lovely beer.
I have to see if there's any importers down here. It's a bit of a thing when you're in Belgium. The whole notion of buying import beer is a little bit.
Yes. Lots of Belgian beer to go for. Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll send you a link. Yeah, no worries.
Perfect.
Well, if you want a funny story about craft beer and IPAs, I went into a little grocery store, a little local place down here one time, and was looking for something new to try, and I saw a honey ale, and it was by, I think the brewery was Angry Beaver, and the name of the beer was Me So Honey. And when I went to check out, it was an Asian lady checking me, like going through the checkout. She was the one that was charging me for it. And she looks at the beer and she gives me a funny look and then looks at the beer again and rings it up. If you're a fan of the old movies, it was an old war movie and I can't think of what it was right now. G, do you remember?
No, I remember an old Korean movie, a Korean wartime movie about some men where there's a woman that just keeps saying that.
Yeah. But it was just, for me at least, going through the checkout there, it was kind of almost a little embarrassing.
She didn't shout out, "Hey, how much is the?" to someone then.
No. That would have probably made it worse, but it would have made the story so much more hilarious.
Okay, Drac, on that one, should we wrap up before we start getting too politically incorrect?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, hearing about your game, hearing about a bit of bacon and some Welsh beer. I've never had a Welsh beer. I need to try that. Apologies that I didn't play it, but as I said, I have a Mac. It's Windows only, but anybody out there with a Windows computer wants to try a little bit something different, perhaps something that isn't too fast. This is a little bit turn-based, and where you have to play the cards right, and as Draconusx says, get all the wrong cards because he likes to blame the game.
That's just... This is blaming the cards,
But to our listeners, go check it out. I think it looked quite nice, actually, because otherwise we wouldn't have had Ian on, just to be fair. So I don't have anything else. Then, Ian, thank you for being on. It was a pleasure, absolute pleasure. You took me down old memories. That was always fun.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, bit of nostalgia from the old guy.
Oh yeah.
No, it's been great to talk to you, both of you. It's been really interesting, and yeah. Thanks for thanks for taking interest in the game. I really appreciate it.
And for me, Drac, Ian, thank you. It has been a pleasure. And for everybody else, talk to you later.
Cool. Bye.
Ciao.